Hey guys, my name is Nabiri and it's time for another Synth Saturday, and today I'm going to explain everything about Sylenth. So in this video I'm going to explain everything about how Sylenth works. So we're going to start with the oscillators, then we're going to go through the filters from filter A and filter B, and then the filter control, and then we'll end up with the mod envelopes and the LFOs. Just looking at Sylenth, it can overwhelm you. At first I was like, what the heck is this amount of buttons and what am I supposed to do with this? So I hope this video is going to help you out and get stuff sorted for you so you can start making nice leads and understand how to work with Sylenth. If you actually just break it down, you got 4 times an oscillator. So if you understand one of these top parts, you understand the next one as well, and it's the same for A and B. So it isn't too hard. An oscillator is basically just a part of a synthesizer that's making a waveform. And we got multiple waveforms to choose from over here. For hardstyle, most of the time we're going for saws or maybe pulses for top leads. But yeah, it's just an oscillator that just creates a sound wave. And we got the voices. The voices are quite important because each oscillator can make up to 8 voices. So then it's making 8 of these saw waveforms. And then we have the retrig. And retrig just spreads the voices out a little bit. It starts them at a different point. And if we want to visualize that, we can do that in Serum. Basically, you don't need to start off a saw at the beginning of the saw each time. And what retrig does, it's making one start off at this yellow point over here, the yellow stripe, and then the other one might start off a little bit over here and a little bit over there. So it's spreading out the beginning of these saws, and that's just nice for making hypersaw leads. So with retrig on, all these waveforms are just stacked on top of each other. And when you turn it off, it just spreads it out and makes a more wide and thick sound. And then you have the invert, and that's just basically flipping the positive and the negative over in the waveform. So now we have covered these knobs on the bottom. I want to talk a little bit about the most important knobs up top here. And it's basically just the detune. Detune is nice for making hypersaws, and it detunes each voice separately so you can get an even more wide and thick sound. And sometimes I'm using the phasing, but that's mainly just for top leads. And yeah, just the rest of the buttons, I normally let them just stay over there and don't even touch them. So if you're following this video and you're understanding how to use these voices, what the retrig does, and that detune, you're actually already understanding like almost halfway through Sylenth already. So each oscillator is just a copy of the other one. It's just going to behave the same. And the only thing you need to practice is using oscillators together to create a new or a better sound, a more thick sound, a fuller sound. To cover the amplifier envelope, just the most important thing for me is when I'm making a lead, I'm just lifting up the release a little bit so we don't get that click at the end of each note. If I turn it down and I play this little melody thing for you, you're just going to notice that it has clicks sometimes at the end of each note, and if you open up the release, these clicks go away. And to over exaggerate that, you can even turn it up more. But yeah, I just open it up a tiny bit so that clicks are going away, and then I go about my rest of the stuff that I want to do in Sylenth. So then we got these filters, and these filters are basically just turned off by default, and you can make it a low pass, a high pass, a band pass, just the basic 3 filter types. And you can make the curve a little bit sharper or a little bit more dull. So 24 decibels is making it a little bit more sharp, and 12 decibels is just flattening out that curve a little bit. Then the drive is just putting more gain through the filter, and the resonance is making a peak where the filter is. So that would look something like, let me show you. we low pass this, then the filter or the resonance is basically going to do this. So it's peaking up this edge of the filter. And you can just use those in combination with this filter control. And the filter control is like the big button that controls both the A and B filter on both sides. It's just the same. So if we put it over here and go through the other part, it's still at the same part. That filter control is just gonna control both of these filters together. So the resonance is going to be applied to both of the filters. So if we put a bandpass over here, this resonance is going to affect the bandpass and it's going to affect the low pass that we have over here. So this is just the most basic explanation I can give for Sylenth about the top half, the half of the synthesizer that's just making the sound. And now I suggest we just make a sound together, just make a basic hypersol. And we're gonna explain these mod envelopes and the LFOs with the sound that we're creating. So starting off with an init preset, I'm just gonna explain literally every tweak that we're gonna be doing. So I'm just gonna make a hypersol lead for this melody. And hypersol basically just means using lots of these sol waveforms and using lots of voices. So we're gonna probably turn them all up to 8 or maybe 6. And just use the detune to create a nice thick sound. To create a nice hypersol, I like to turn off my retrick so we can spread out the voices as much as possible and just create a nice full lead. So I'm gonna open this up with 8 at first, and then we're gonna open up the detune and see where it sounds nice. We kind of want a dirty sound, but we don't want to make it too dirty yet. And if this is your first time tweaking the detune, go crazy and go wild and listen to what detune actually does. So it's basically, what it's basically doing is it's just tuning each voice differently. So if you open up the detune way too much, the voices are basically too detuned from each other, and that's what makes it sound ugly. But then if you turn it back down and kind of keep it at halfway, you're actually finding a sweet spot where it's just sounding cool and it's a good start for a hypersol. And now I'm just going to raise the release a little bit so we don't have that click at the end. And we're going to open up our next sol oscillator. And we're just going to throw it open to 8 voices and turn the retrick off so we can keep working on this nice wide sound. Now, it takes a little time to get used to listening to detune. So I'm doing this for quite some time already, and then I'll automatically hear where a detune is sounding nice compared to the other detune of the previous oscillator. But just play around with it a little bit and see where the detune sounds right to you, and just keep practicing with it. So I'll just show you where it can sound a little bit too off, and I'll just show you where it's maybe sounding a little bit too thin. Now we are having this really detuned one from the oscillator A1, and we're having this way too thin, not detuned version from oscillator A2. And if we put it maybe a little bit too far, you're gonna notice that it's gonna sound ugly as well. Unless you're really going for these old school rave sounds, then you can really go wild with the detune. Because this tutorial is focused on beginners, I'm only going to use part A, and we're going to be moving through the filters right now, and then we're going to end up with a mod envelope to show you how to use these settings over here to create a more unique sound. So now we're going to the filter, and for hypersols I just like to use low pass. And I like to open up this filter control, and I like to keep the cutoff as it is, just because you have this main knob for both sides if you'd be using part A and part B. Then I like to put the filter to 12 decibels, and that's because I just like it when the curve of my filter is a little bit more soft. And just my personal preference. So maybe you're going to progress into sound design and you'll find out that 24 decibels works better for you, that's fine. So now what we've done, we've low passed this and we can hear this when we play around with this cutoff knob. And I like to open up the drive a little bit, so we have a little bit of gain with this filter. It's making it a little bit louder, but it's also making it a little bit more dirty, just a tiny bit. And then we're going to open up this resonance. And what this resonance does is just increasing the amount of highs. Because this filter is opened up all the way. And this one's creating that little bell on top of the filter curve. We can actually increase the highs by increasing the resonance. Do you hear how that's creating a more thin sound just by increasing the amount of highs? If you want to play around with that, I just suggest you kind of stay over here so you get a nice amount of highs added into there, and that's just going to make the lead a little bit more balanced for when you want to EQ it afterwards. Now for this hypersaw, this is where I would stop using the top section. And I'd go down in the mod envelopes and into the LFOs to shape the sound some more. So if we turn down this cutoff knob and we take a look at this mod envelope, we see that it's kind of the same as the amplifier envelope. And we got tons of options over here. And what this basically does is giving us a destination for this certain envelope. And then the amount that we want to be applying this envelope to this destination. So cutoff AB is basically just this big knob. Cutoff B would be the this one, and cutoff A would be this one. But we want to use the big knob for this, and we're going to open this up. So as you hear, this little envelope is applied to the cutoff. If we then shape this envelope a little bit, so perhaps like this, it's making this cutoff move while we're opening it, for example. So in old school hardstyle, you used to have this a lot when you're having this melody playing and you're hearing the pluck from that melody. So you can use that to your advantage to make a pluck out of a hypersaw. You can also use these envelopes to change the pitch of the entire sound that Sylenth is making. So yeah, this is basically just going to sound horrible. But it's also allowing us to add a little pitch envelope in front of each note. So whenever each note is starting to play, it's going to repeat this envelope and it's going to make this little pitch coming up for each note. And that's just a basic way to create a more interesting sound, because this is just moving a lot more than without a pitching envelope. This just sounds dull and boring, and you can really change your synth and make it more interesting by adding just this basic pitch curve. So now we're having this nice hypersaw that's a little bit creative because we have a cutoff envelope and we've got a pitching envelope as well. And now we're going to use an LFO. And what an LFO does is we're basically going to assign this one to a certain destination. So let's say the pitch again. And the amount, we're just going to open it up a tiny bit because we can go too far too quickly with this. And what this is going to do, it's going to make this pitch move with the sine wave of this LFO. So we can change the waveform of this as well. But yeah, let's keep it at the sine. And what it's basically going to do is it's going to move the pitch of the sound that we're making by a certain rate. And we can increase this rate with the rate knob over here. And we can increase the gain to really hear our pitch moving. just to exaggerate it, it's just making that pitch of our sound move. So we can use this to our advantage to make the sound a little bit more interesting again by keeping the amount quite low and the gain quite low as well. So you can make some micro adjustments in the lead so it sounds a little bit more moving. So I actually feel that I've been explaining Sylenth1 for beginners as much as I need to. If you're interested in seeing me making a full lead, just let me know in the comments down below. I can do that again with Sylenth as well, but otherwise you can just watch my old videos as well. If you have any questions about Sylenth or stuff that I didn't explain in here yet, or maybe something isn't clear, just let me know in the comments down below. And I hope you liked this video and you learned something from this, and hopefully I'll see you back soon again. Cheers!